All right, in this tutorial, we're going to be working on pockets, attaching the pockets, and then also how to sew a button onto this cardigan. This is one of my pockets, and we're going to be doing the second one together. So you are going to leave the original tail from your slip knot out. You will sew in the tail that you fasten off with, but we are going to be using this beginning tail to attach the pocket in the beginning. So we are going to go ahead and get started with row 1. You need to have a chain 30 to get started, so go ahead and do your chain 30 and I will see you for row 1. Alrighty, row 1 of the pockets. So got my chain 30 here. We're going to count in to the third bump here. So technically we've got 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, and we're going to place a double crochet, okay, in the bump. And you know, I don't like to work into the sides, so we are going to be placing these double crochets into the bottom bump here. So go ahead and you're going to place 28 across, and then this beginning chain counts as your 29th double crochet. So I'll see you for row 2. All right, moving into row 2, we're going to place 3 double crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to chain 1, we're going to skip a stitch and place a cluster a total of 11 times. That's going to leave you with 4 stitches at the end. So go ahead and chain 1, skip a stitch, and place a cluster 10 more times by yourself. All right, so I've got 11 clusters and 11 chains. We're going to chain 1 more, we're going to skip a stitch, and we're going to place 3 double crochets. So 1, 2, and I am going to place that third one by picking up both of the loops of this chain as if I've crocheted into the bottom bump. Maybe this one's really giving me some problems. It's the only color. I'm going to finish this up off screen and then we'll move into row 3. All right, so I did pick up that second loop. Sometimes it's really hard to crochet on screen. So now we're going to move into row 3 and we're going to place 3 double crochets here. So 1, 2, and 3. And now we're going to place a cluster in the chain space, followed by a chain for a total of 11 times. So go ahead and place a cluster in the chain space, followed by a chain 10 more times. All right, so I've got 11 clusters and 11 chains. We're going to place 1 more cluster. We're going to place 3 double crochets here. 1, 2, and 3. Now, my yarn's getting, my tail got all caught up. Now you are going to repeat rows 2 and 3 all the way up to row 14. All of your clusters are going to go in chain spaces, just like the sleeves or the vest of this cardigan. So, all right, so you're going to see that row 15, I have 29 double crochets across. In row 16, I have 29 half double crochets across here. So we are going to be working down the edge of this pocket, okay? And what you're going to do is chain 2 to create a corner. And now, just like on the body of this cardigan, we're going to place 2 single crochets over the last double crochet in every row. So you are going to have 30 single crochets when you get to the other corner. So go ahead and place 2 single crochets over the last double crochet 14 more times. All right, so I've got 30 single crochets along this edge. We're going to chain 2. And beginning with the top of this chain space that you would have put 2 single crochets over, we're going to place 29 single crochets across the bottom here. Okay, and you will be working into both of those loops. I'm not going to torture you with me forcing my hook into both loops of this first chain. So I will see you at the other corner when I have 29 single crochets. Okay, so I've got my 29 single crochets across here. I'm going to chain 2. We are going to leave this tail out because we're going to use it to attach our pocket to this, to our cardigan. So leave that tail. We're chaining 2 though, and then we're going to go ahead and place 2 single crochets over the last double crochet, in every row, and you're going to do that 15 times just like the other edge, okay? So I'll see you at the last corner and I will help you fasten off. All right, I've got my 30 single crochets down the second edge. I'm going to chain 2. We're going to slip stitch to the top of that first half double crochet. And then giving myself about a 6-inch tail, I'm going to fasten off. And then what you'll do with this tail is take a darning needle and go back through that stitch that we slip stitched through, and then you will weave back and forth 3 times in a zigzag, and then fasten off whatever remaining tail is there. And so now we're going to move on to attaching our pockets. You're going to want to make sure that you've made 2 of these. All right, so for your left pocket, you are going to attach your yarn to the corner that is going to be closest to the edge over here, okay? So this corner here, and then you'll work across the bottom, up that side, across and down, okay? And so that's how you'll work on the left pocket, and then you'll be all done. All right, so for this pocket, we are going to be starting on the buttonhole side, the right side pocket, okay? And we're going to be attaching both pockets, though, in the bottom right corner when you look at it like this. So you should have all your stitch markers. These are going to be how you know to stay in line for your edges, okay? And to get started, and I know some of you that are more advanced are going to be like, why are we starting with the right? As well as, why are we having our pocket flipped backwards? I promise you, you're not even going to notice that this is quote unquote the back side due to all of our single crochets here, right? Doesn't matter. Not gonna impact the end result in any capacity, okay? We are also gonna start on the right pocket because we are gonna have some beginners that have never done anything like this. And while I am very hopeful that you will accomplish getting from corner to corner and landing where your stitch markers are, there are going to be some beginners that are going to struggle with this, and they might not end up in this alignment. And so let's say that they wind up on like the 8th hole instead of, I think this is the 5th, then they can adjust easier on the buttonhole pocket side, the left pocket, because they can just count in from the edge and make sure that it's in the same space. So what we're going to do, I'm going to zoom in here. We are going to take a hook or a darning needle. I'm going to use my hook, and we're going to go through both loops of that bottom right corner where that pocket, that stitch marker is, okay? And then we're going to go through, we're going to take that tail and we're going to pull it to the back, okay? Maybe. Oh, I got caught on a little bit of the light blue yarn. Okay, so now go ahead and take your the yarn that you're going to use to attach your pockets and do a magic knot. So I'll be right back. Alrighty, so I do have my hook. We're going to put our hook through the chain 2 as well as the top of that cluster where that stitch marker is, okay? And now we are going to yarn over and we're going to slip stitch through to the front, just like that, okay? I'm going to apologize. There's a couple flies flying around. So some of you watching this are going through a massive transformation. Okay, so now we're going to go into both loops of the next stitch on the pocket. And we are going to go into the chain space on the body here, okay? And we're going to yarn over and do a slip stitch, okay? We're going to go into the next stitch on the pocket, and we're going to go into the top of the next cluster in that same row on the body, picking up both loops. Okay, moving forward. And that's all you're going to do all the way down to the next chain 2 space on the pocket in the next corner on the body. So that's it, all it is, and I'll see you in a second. Alrighty, you're going to see how I have slip stitched all the way across here. It's looking really pretty. And the fact that this is the back of the pocket, technically, you can't even tell, okay? And so now we're going to be working along the edge here. And I've already gone through my chain 2 in the top of that first cluster along our edge. And so now we're going to go into the next stitch, or the first stitch along the edge, and we're going to go into the middle of the cluster that our chain 2 was in, okay? I'm going to flip that forward, and we're just going to slip stitch. Okay, now we're going to work in the chain space right here. So you'll see this cluster, and the one that's stitch marked again are in the same row or in the same lineup. So we're going to do the next 2 stitches. We're going to slip stitch through this chain space here. So go into the pocket, go into that chain space, yarn over, and do your slip stitch. Go into the next stitch, go into that same chain space, yarn over, and do your slip stitch. Now, we're going to go into the next stitch on the pocket, and we're going to go through the cluster just as if we were going to work along the top of it. Okay? And then we're going to go into the next stitch on the pocket, and we're going to go into the center of the cluster. And that's how you'll do this whole section all the way up to your next chain 2. Okay? Alrighty, so I've got all my slip stitches up the edge of this pocket. And so what I'm going to do is fasten off with about, oh shoot, my scissors are a million miles away. We're going to fasten off with at least 10 inches of tail, if not a little bit more. It doesn't matter how long the tail is, as long as it's at least 10 inches. We're going to cut it, and we're going to pull it through to the front. Okay, and now we're going to take a darning needle. And we are going to go so the medium's a little bit different than some of the other sizes where we wind up where this last stitch marker is. Instead, the medium kind of winds up in the middle of this row. And so what we're going to do is actually go behind here. We're going to pull that darning needle, and then we're going to come through that chain 2. So we're going to do that 2 more times, okay? Because we want this corner to be really nice and tight. So we're going to go through that chain 2. Do it 1 more time. We just want to make sure that it's attached. So if you put stuff in it, it doesn't move funny, okay? So now we're going to put a magic knot. I'm going to attach a magic knot, so give me a second to do that. All right, so inserting your hook into that chain 2 area, you're gonna pull the yarn as a slip stitch. And now you're just gonna slip stitch all the way across the top of this pocket to make it a little bit tighter, okay? So I will see you at the next chain 2, the next corner of this pocket. All right, so I've come to the other side of this cardigan. I'm going to zoom out just a touch because it feels tight. And so I slip stitch into that chain 2 last. And now I'm going to give myself another like 10 inches of tail. We're going to cut it, pull that forward, and we're going to take this darning needle. Okay. And we know that we're going to attach it around this corner right here, okay? Because this first stitch marker is in that row that was at the top of where the pocket ends. And so we're going to go ahead, and where this corner is between these clusters, we're going to attach this corner 2 times. Oop, I went backwards. I do apologize. Hold on. Let me redo this. All right. So sorry about that. I had to pause because I went the wrong way. So you're going to go through this side and out the other corner, and then you'll go into the chain 2. Okay, and you're going to do that 3 times, just like the other side. I've done this literally, I can't even tell you how many times, so this is why I'm able to do it without really looking. You will get good at this if you do this cardigan more than this time. So, and now we're going to go through that chain 2, and then we're going to pull that tail through the back here. Okay, so we're going to go back through that cluster area where we were attaching the corner, and now we're going to attach our magic knot in the inside of the cardigan. Alrighty, so to get started on this edge, we are going to be placing our hook in the middle of this first cluster. You're going to want to make sure that it's the cluster that's atop that one that you have a stitch marker in, so that you're in the right line. Okay, so go in the middle, and that's how you're going to get started. This is always difficult to do this side, just because of how much yarn is on the inside. So then we're going to go into the next stitch, and we will enter the top 2 loops, okay? And then you'll repeat the fashion of 2 stitches in the chain space, and then you'll go all the way down to the chain 2, okay? So I'm going to finish up this slip stitch with you. Okay, so we're going to work down to the other chain 2. All right, so I have come to the last chain 2 here. We're back to where we started. I'm going to fasten off with about an 8-inch tail, like always. And I'm going to pull that through to the front, okay? Now, we want this little spot to kind of look seamless, and so we're going to take our darning needle. Oh my gosh. Come on, little darning needle. And we're going to go through the center of that very first slip stitch, okay? And then we'll come back through and make sure I'm not weaving through too many rows here. Through that cluster, both loops, we'll go through that chain 2 on the pocket, okay? And then what I'm going to do is weave in my tail this way, back up to the chain 2, and then I'll go down this side, the edge, and then back to the chain 2, and I'll fasten off. And so then you will repeat these steps on the left pocket, starting in the same hole that this, when you count in, so 2, 4, we started on the 5th. So I would attach at the 5th hole and move my stitch markers if necessary. So congratulations, you will move on to the button though when you're done with these pockets. All right, so I'm going to show you how I attach buttons or sew buttons to the cardigans. And I am going to use a technique that I was taught as a small child by my grandma. This is an old school way of doing buttons, so if you've never sewn a button, I am going to show you the way that people have been doing this for centuries, as she taught me. And so what we're going to do, and I've already prepped my needle, you're going to cut about 24 inches of string, okay? And then you're going to make sure that your needle, because this is a beginner or a rookie mistake for a lot of people, make sure your needle can pull all the way through that buttonhole, okay? Then you're going to double it over. And so you will have 2 strings that we're going to be working with, okay? You can see that there. And I always knot it twice, okay? So now what we're going to do, once you have that done, we're going to go behind the post and out the other side, okay? Go ahead and pull that string just a touch. And now you can remove that stitch marker because we don't need it anymore. And then what I do is I take my needle and I get it pretty close to the end. And then I go through the loop at the end, okay? And that's gonna make it so that our string is around that post. Then we're gonna take our 20 millimeter button. We're gonna go through one of the holes, okay? Now, we're gonna go through the second hole with our needle, and we're gonna make sure that we're going into we're gonna go into the base of this stitch, okay? So let me zoom in just a touch. So we're gonna go into the base of that stitch, which is really the top because we worked from the top to the bottom, okay? And then we're gonna pull our string. Make sure it's pretty nice and tight. And then we're gonna find the top of that same post, and we're gonna go through the top of it. And you should line up perfectly with the other hole of the button. Okay, we're gonna do that a total of 5 times. So I'm gonna get my 5th time. This is our second. I'm gonna do it 3 more times. All right, so I've got 5 loop-de-loops around the button, and my hook, my yarn, or my, I'm still in fiber arts mode. My needle is in the back. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my needle and I'm gonna go underneath that post in all 5 of those stitches that we just did. And that's gonna bring us to the front. So we're gonna flip it to the front, and now our needle is gonna come to the front, okay? And now what you're gonna do, and you're gonna do this pretty tightly, and I hold it with my non-dominant hand or my non-sewing hand. We're gonna wrap it around 5 times to make it real tight. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, okay? Now we're gonna take our needle, go through that top button hole, and then you're gonna go through the bottom one. We're gonna do that one more time. Now I don't have to look because I have been sewing for like 35 years. I think I had a sewing needle in my hand when I was like 2 or 3. So now we've got 2 more, okay? So you should have 5 wraparounds, and you should have 7 total here, okay? So now we're on the back. We're gonna go through some of our black yarn, or our black string here, sewing thread here, and we're gonna then pick up that loop. Mine's kind of twisted, okay? And we're gonna pull through. We're gonna do that 2 more times for a total of 3. You want to do it in 3 different places, is what I was taught. Okay, that's 2 and 3. Okay, and now I'm going to take my scissors, cut pretty closely there, leave a little bit of string, and now the button is sewn on. So you do that for all your buttons, and then you'll be done.